You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Welcome to this episode of the Business of Practice podcast, where we focus on the business and human sides of equine veterinary medicine. In this episode, we're going to talk to Drs. Kelly Zeytoonian and Martha Mallicote about their experiences with getting their MBA and their recommendations for others considering this path. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Grice, business consultant and former equine practice owner. The Business of Practice podcast is brought to you in 2024 by CareCredit. Dr. Kelly Zeytoonian is the owner of Starwood Equine Veterinary Service and Starwood Veterinary Consulting. She earned her doctorate of veterinary medicine from the Virginia, Maryland Regional College of Veterinary Medicine in 2009 and a master's in business administration from the University of North Carolina, Kenan-Flager School of Business in 2020. In 2013, Dr. Zeytoonian established an ambulatory practice, Starwood Equine, in the San Francisco Bay Area, which has since grown to include 6 doctors and 2 locations. She also serves as faculty at Foothill Community College, where she contributes to the future of the veterinary field by educating registered veterinary technician candidates. Dr. Zeytoonian is a member of the American Association of Equine Practitioners and serves on the AAEP Commission for Equine Veterinary Sustainability's Practice Culture Subcommittee, which she co-chaired at its inception. She has also served in the past on the board of directors of the Northern California Association of Equine Practitioners. Dr. Martha Mallicote is a Weeks Endowed Clinical Associate Professor at the University of Florida College of Veterinary Medicine in the Large Animal Clinical Sciences Department. The Weeks Endowed Professorship is appointed to a faculty member who demonstrates exemplary success as an innovator and scholar in teaching and who is a role model for collaboration, teamwork, and faculty citizenship as a mentor and educational leader. Dr. Mallicote teaches veterinary students in the classroom, the large animal hospital, and in the veterinary business curriculum. She's the director of the Veterinary Business Certificate Program for DVM students, and that program has grown to include almost a quarter of the DVM cohort, preparing them to own and operate their own veterinary practices. Dr. Mallicote earned her Bachelor of Science in the year 2000 from the College of Charleston School of Business and Economics. In 2006, she graduated with her DVM from the University of Tennessee College of Veterinary Medicine. She completed a residency at the University of Florida College of Veterinary Medicine and became a diplomat of the American College of Veterinary Internal Medicine in 2012. In 2019, she completed her Master's of Business Administration at the University of Florida. Welcome, Dr. Zeytoonian and Mallicote.
Thanks for having us. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you joining us. You both earned your MBAs after your careers were established in the veterinary field, and I did the same. I'm eager to learn more about your experiences and how it changed your paths in the equine veterinary industry. And first, let's just sort of talk about what inspired you to pursue your MBA, experiences in your veterinary medicine career, how that influenced that decision. Dr. Zeytoonian?
Sure. I think mine started as an associate where I really had the opportunity to be involved in a number of facets of the business. We transitioned from medical, handwritten medical notes to electronic medical records. I did an update of the website, helped with streamlining vaccine clinics to be more efficient. And I really enjoyed how those behind the scene changes really translated into better patient and employee care. I also experienced some of the negative effects of working on a team that wasn't really well managed and had a leader who didn't know enough to really properly communicate their decision-making process in an effective manner for me as a new associate to understand. So after starting Starwood, I knew that I wanted to do better for my growing team, and pursuit of that MBA felt like the way to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, similar kinds of experiences for me, like experiencing how it wasn't working, but not really knowing how to make it work and thinking, well, I should learn something here. How about you, Dr. Mallicote?
I love that information about your all's reason, and I think it's a really common one. I have to admit that my pathway was a little bit different because I did have a background in business and worked prior to actually going to veterinary school. So the, basic concepts of business management weren't foreign to me. But what I found as I was doing more and more instruction with veterinary students in that area, that I really wanted to up the ante and explore that further for myself in a professional program. And it was a really interesting experience to complete a professional program while instructing in another one. That was a side bonus that I hadn't anticipated, but it was a nice adjunct piece of the benefit for me. I think that this whole area of how do we teach veterinarians better how to be business people is a really interesting one. And for some people, it's an MBA, and maybe not everyone. There are lots of routes to get that experience.
Yeah, I would agree. What was your program like? Was it online, in person? Were you going full-time, part-time? And how much did it cost? My program was like $30,000. And yeah, and I did it part-time while I was practicing full-time and oh my God, thank God it was all online. I would take exams at like 5 a.m. before I went to work. Oh my God. How was it for you, Dr. Mallicote?
I did actually an in-person program, but it is what they term a professional program. Mine was actually an executive MBA, and those programs are all designed to accommodate for a working person's schedule. Maybe not a working veterinarian schedule, but certainly a working person's schedule. And there were actually a couple other MDs in my cohort as well. So I wasn't the only person that was doing a clinical life at the same time. And I chose that in person because I knew that would make me be the best possible student. And I know how I study and how I learn, and being forced to be in the classroom and be personally and physically responsible for coming up with my deliverables was really important. I felt like to make sure that I would prioritize it. The online programs are great. And I think they do allow the accessibility for location and for time accessibility, and they can be delivered really, really well just from an academic point of view. But I think you've got to consider what kind of learner you are and what's going to make you most engage with the material in choosing kind of what strategy is best for you. I can also say, I think probably more important than what I paid, I looked up to see what my program costs now if you do it, and it's $62,000. And I got a discount because I work here, but it's not inexpensive. And from what I can see, all the programs at University of Florida, whether they be online or in person or professional or what have you, they're all going to run between $40,000 and $60,000 for the entire, period of time. And they all charge by the credit hour, so there is some logic to it, but that per credit hour price can vary a lot between places.
Yeah, that, the thing about my program, which was completely online, it was sort of in concert with IBM, whose headquarters were nearby. And so, oh my word, we had to do all this interaction and collaboration online. And it was, yeah. And I finally realized that it was actually helpful to work with a group, because prior to that, I was often one of those people that's like, oh my God, it'll be so much easier. I'll just do it myself. Right. And I realized working in a group that way, other people had great ideas, and it was really a growth experience for me. How about you, Dr. Zeytoonian? How about your program?
Yeah, so I joked that I got really comfortable with Zoom before Zoom was the cool thing to be comfortable with. So I finished the program literally as the world shut down. And so for the prior 2.5 years, I predominantly did the program through UNC via asynchronous work, which is work on your own time, videos that you review, and prep work. And then we met again via Zoom on a weekly basis. Each class meets once a week. So I was doing 2 or 3 classes a week, meeting after hours or after work hours. And, I chose that program for a couple reasons. They were at the time, I think, ranked number one. They'd been a well-established online program. And when we were looking, I say we, because my husband and I actually did the program together. So he did the research. But when we were looking for a program to do, we wanted to find something that would fit our need to continue working full-time and running our businesses. And we liked the idea that that wasn't a brand new program. They've been doing it online, and they also require a couple of visits to campus so that you can network and really have a connection with the professors that you're then seeing online. So really enjoyed that, although it was a grueling 2.5 years of working all day and then being in class until 10 o'clock at night, and spending all of your waking hours thinking about it. But I really loved that, I could learn something the night before and then immediately go to work the next day and share it with the team or apply it to something that we were doing. And to me, that excitement and that ability to feel like I was re-engaging in the practice was worth every penny. And Gulp, remember I told you it was the number one ranked. It cost as much as vet school, so it was $150,000.
Oh,
I lucked out towards the end, and actually, because of COVID, had some loan forgiveness applied, which was amazing. But yeah, it was quite expensive. But I, just like Dr. Mallicote, I would do it all over again for what I was able to reinvest into the practice.
absolutely. You know, that was one of my big surprises in doing my MBA was, wow, it was just so amazing to be learning something entirely different. And I loved every minute of it. And just like you guys, I mean, I did mine before inflation took over tuition. So mine sounds really cheap now. When I was doing it, it seemed like a lot.
The Business of Practice podcast is brought to you by CareCredit. CareCredit keeps equine veterinarians at the heart of care by providing horse owners with simple, budget-friendly financing options. By helping to bridge the gap between cost and care, CareCredit supports healthy financial relationships between veterinarians and their clients. Clients have a flexible way to pay over time for all types of care, and practices get paid in 2 business days. It's a payment experience everyone can feel good about.
What was your biggest surprise, Dr. Zeytoonian?
I think I'll laugh now, but I was really surprised to see that, and pleasantly surprised to see that veterinary medicine isn't the only career path that is lacking in solid business foundations in, the training process. I think we live in our bubble where we think that it is just a vet med problem. And while we are unique in some aspects, we are not that unique when it comes to those themes of, poorly run or well-run businesses. And, again, on that same kind of note, what I found was that the numbers and the true business side of what I was learning are not really, those are the easy part, right? That like you just learn it just like you learn your anatomy. The hard part were really those soft skills that we're now calling power skills. And those are really what define the success of a business. And those take a lot more practice and take a lot more self-reflection to really dig in and figure out what's working and how to do better. So I think it makes a lot of sense now, especially in the trends that we're seeing with retention and attraction issues and with practices that we've historically felt are very well run from a business perspective, but are not doing so well from an employee or a culture perspective. So those soft skills really were the most impactful to me, and also the most surprising that that's what I took away as, most important.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. How about you, Dr. Mallicote?
I think my biggest surprise was the value that I got out of the cohort I was in completing the program. And they told me that when I was talking to admissions people, and they actually tried to steer me towards the executive program. I was trying to do basically the fastest program I could do. And they suggested, hey, you're not 22, you should consider this other one. And they were right. There is a huge value to the people who you're completing that program alongside. And as you've alluded to, Dr. Grice, the group work is substantial and great. It does build those skills and in working in teams. And the value that I got out of the teams that I worked with, there was one that I did almost everything with through almost the entire program, which is not accidental. That is a design of the program. They were enormously valuable. So I got just as much out of my cohort than I did from the faculty at the front of the room. And I really did not anticipate that. I really started this program just trying to get through it, barrel through it, and be done as fast as I could. And that was a very nice surprise that I discovered as I got through it.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
I see Dr. Zeytoonian nodding her head, and I'm over here nodding my head. Yeah. I mean, I think the other people really, really bring so much to the table.
And so I think it's an important thing to consider about selecting a program, not just like what strategy is best for you online or in person. It's also, who am I going to be sitting alongside in this class? Because you're going to get a lot from them as well.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Absolutely. What do you think it's had the biggest impact on your career, getting your MBA? You've had it for a few years. What do you think?
I think it has certainly helped me further expand the certificate program that we have at UF. That's been a really nice opportunity where I can incorporate some of the newer things that I've been exposed to through the MBA, and that's been a plus, I think, for the program and for our students. The other thing, not unlike what Dr. Zeytoonian was talking about, is the amount of organizational behavior that we had in the program, and particularly actually behavioral economics, which was a really nascent field when I was an undergrad. I've incorporated those things into every day of my life, regardless of whether it's, the business certificate classes or other things. And so those were incredibly useful courses and content that I really have drawn on in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. How about you, Dr. Zeytoonian? What impact do you feel like it's had? And I know it's had a lot.
Yeah. Similar to Dr. Mallicote, where, taking what I was already doing sort of informally and using that MBA to be a bit of a push to formalize. So, I've had the opportunity to take over teaching the office practices course for the veterinary technician program, which is, it has a flavor of not only somebody who has the business background, but somebody who runs a practice. So preparing those technicians to come in and be good employees and understand why we track the inventory and understand why it's so important that we, follow these protocols and procedures. And that's been, nice to be able to really apply it from both the curriculum and real life. And, doing webinars and having the ability to really reach out to practitioners has been super fun. The thing that I am most proud of that has come partially from the MBA and partially actually from Decade One and my cohort that would get together and meet and talk about these things is co-founding of the Sustainability and Equine Practice seminars. We focus on personal and professional development, and I get to talk about the business things to people that want to hear about it. So that's been really cool because I've seen the impact that it has, just helping people to shape equine medicine into what they want it to look like, not what it has historically looked like. And that to me that's worth every $150,000 that I spent to feel like I can then turn it around and help others. That's what fills my cup.
I love what you said, shape equine veterinary medicine. Instead of like shaping yourself to try to fit into this container that doesn't hold you properly and makes you uncomfortable, instead shape the career for who you are. Do you guys all feel like I have felt so entrepreneurial about and sort of evangelistic about bringing this to other veterinarians, other people that are missing it. It's like, this is great information. You need to know it. Do you feel that way too?
I do. And it almost feels like you've gone through this work and you have this background. You better use it. You better use those additional 3 letters to start driving some change. Otherwise, not that it's wasted, but to just invest it in my practice itself doesn't feel like enough for all of the time and energy and effort that this whole process has taken.
I completely agree. I mean, being able to take this to other populations, whether it be the veterinary students that I get to impact, the practice owners that Dr. Grice gets to impact through a lot of the publications she's doing, the sustainability initiatives, I think it's taking what we've learned and really applying it to our profession as a whole. And we need more of this.
We definitely do. And some individuals may want to, go forward and get their MBA, and they will have the same sort of feelings, the same change in their minds about how to affect change, not just one practice at a time, but really trying to lean in and change others with this information. So what advice would you give to practitioners who are thinking, maybe I should get an MBA. I'm kind of bored with what I'm doing. I'd like to learn something new. Maybe it's an MBA or whatever the reason is why they would want to do that. And, I think it has benefits, even if you're not going to, go out on the speaking circuit or teach students. But what do you think, Dr. Zeytoonian? What advice would you give?
I mean, we're all lifelong learners, right? And so goal-oriented that it makes sense that veterinarians would be attracted to advanced degrees of other sorts. I think there were like 10 veterinarians in my cohort, which is that's a large number of representation for the program, but it makes sense. And what I would say is really consider a program that will not only meet what you're looking for from a professional standpoint, but also one that will help to honor your personal goals, I'll use the word boundaries, personal boundaries, because I will tell you those 2.5 years of school, and I say 2.5, it was supposed to be a 2-year program. I moved it to 2.5 because of the time impact. It really took up all of my spare time. And it worked for me and for my family because my husband was also enrolled in the program. And so he was studying and burning the midnight oil with me. But if that wasn't the case, I could see it having, a huge, huge impact. So, find something that's going to work for you, or go into it eyes wide open that there's going to be some, some changes you'll have to make to your routine in order to support it.
Yeah, I remember my youngest son he had just graduated from high school and he had a wonderful girlfriend, and he and I used to do all this horse stuff together. And then all of a sudden he was doing the horse stuff with his girlfriend. I had personal time all of a sudden, and I was feeling a little sad about, God, my kids are grown up, they've gone off. Maybe I'll just fill that personal time completely with getting an MBA. And it sure did. It sure did fill it up. How about you, Dr. Mallicote?
I think there's certainly a population of people for whom doing an MBA is the right step. And exactly as you guys have described, figuring out if it'll fit in your life is really important. I would also argue that there's probably a population of veterinarians that don't need to get an MBA. And I don't want this to come across as every practice owner should be doing this. I think you have to see the value in being that lifelong learner in that direction. There's no doubt that all veterinarians are lifelong learners, or you wouldn't have made it through vet school and been into practice. But you've got to really be committed to the business aspect to be signing on for 2 more years of this intense work. Does every practice owner need an MBA? No, I think they need to educate themselves about business. But for those who are particularly engaged in this area, it's absolutely a great step to take. And just figuring out the strategy and the kind of learning that fits your learning style will be a really important step for that. That would be my take home.
I think that you've really hit the nail on the head there. it can be an amazing sort of shift or pivot in giving your brain something new to think about that's very, very engaging. But you can also get that by learning to make sausage or teaching yourself to knit. You know, you don't have to spend a lot of money and get an MBA, but for some people, it is really, really amazing. So, anything else you'd like to share with our listeners, Dr. Mallicote?
I think there was one thing I meant to mention when we were talking about types of programs, and that's just that the classical MBA is really focused on corporate. It's focused on corporate finance. It's focused on corporate structures. And many veterinary practices are not that, right? Even things as simple as like financial analysis courses that focus on C Corp tax structures. It's still useful, and you can certainly transfer that knowledge over to smaller business structures. But if it's really important to you to focus on small business, it may be helpful to look for an entrepreneurial focused MBA program. Mine was not that at all, but I think it's something that those who are less in tune with what they're going to get out of the program would want to keep in mind. Like, do I want something that's going to give me more of the small business focus versus a large?
That's an important thing as well. You know, the program that I was in at Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York, had you could focus your MBA. And so mine was focused on ethical leadership, which they also had a focus on public health, and they had a focus on financial. And those were the three if you wanted to focus. And so I think different programs have different ways to shape what you're learning. And I think that's really important. Dr. Zeytoonian?
Yeah, we talked about the benefits that the MBA for me has had on the practice and on my employees and just myself and that higher education. But I do want to briefly touch on the benefits that I feel that it had on my clients. One of the biggest compliments that I received recently was that Starwood Equine is run like a business. And you have to kind of laugh, but it's true. And what she really liked, this client shared, was that she knew what to expect. She knew that the bills were going to come on time. She knew that her clinical summaries were going to come on time. She knew when she called the office to schedule, they were going to follow through. And very simple things, but it does make a huge difference in the impact that we have on those who we are trying to support and help. And so, you don't have to have an MBA to be an amazing practice owner and leader for your team or for your clients. Setting some simple protocols and putting those into place can really help your team and your clients. And you don't have to be an owner also to benefit from the MBA curriculum. So, this isn't just for the practice owner. Associates can certainly benefit. Anyone who's interested in gaining that additional knowledge can benefit from furthering their education on the business aspects. But, I'd say if it's something that's of interest to you, dig in, start going at it, whether it's through something formal or really just making some changes in your practice. I suspect you will see some great benefits to putting those things to work.
I agree wholeheartedly. Excellent thoughts about, running your practice as a business. And that's a great compliment that you got. I love that. That they actually recognized how important that is. Well, thank you both for joining us today, Dr. Zeytoonian and Dr. Mallicote. I'm so appreciative of your time. And thank you all for listening to the Business of Practice podcast, and a really big thanks to our sponsor, CareCredit. And to all my listeners out there, be brave, embrace change,